In this movie, we'll be talking about animating links so when you hover over them, they grow. And in fact, before we do that, we're going to turn these links into things that look visually like buttons. You'll notice that all of these anchor tags are inside of LIs with a class of button. That means we need a button selector and a button anchor tag selector. Each of these buttons we're going to give a margin bottom of 20 pixels. That's going to keep them away from each other. That way they have a little room to breathe, and they therefore look better. Now the anchor tag is actually the thing we want to make bigger. I'm going to do that with a padding of 20 pixels, and of course a background color so we can see it. I'm also going to give them each a width of 150 pixels. Now because they're anchor tags, we actually need to set them to display block. That's because anchor tags by default are inline elements. Inline elements can't have widths and things like that. Now beyond this, we also want to change the color of the text, the font size, and the text decoration. Let's get rid of that underline. Now the text looks quite a bit better. Let's also give it a text align of center, and we'll give them all a border as well. Now we have a decent button. Now beyond that, we want to say whenever we hover over the button, we're going to do some sort of a transformation. We're going to do that on the button up here. So we're going to say whenever anything changes, and we'll use the all keyword for that, animate over 0.4 seconds. Ease in, out. Now what are we going to change? Well, let's grab our button:hover selector and do something with it. I'm scaling it to 2.4 times the size, and I'm going to rotate it 360 degrees. Now if I look at Can I Use, I'll find that I also should probably put the Moz and the WebKit vendor prefixes. Now when I refresh and I hover over, you'll see that indeed it spins and it gets larger. Now that's a little bit strange. Notice how they kind of spin in this weird way? We can actually inspect the element and figure out why. If you look at the list element, you'll find it spans across the entire document. That's why those elements are spinning so wide. It's because the center of the LI is right here, not right here. The way we're going to get around that for right now is we're going to say whenever you hover over a button, tell the anchor tag to do that transition. Similarly, we'll take this transition here and we'll move it into the anchor tag. Now we're spinning the anchor tag. The anchor tag should only take up the area that you see as red. If I refresh, I now get a nice spin. So this looks pretty darn good. The only problem is if I move my mouse really quickly up to the top, you'll find that all of them move. I don't necessarily want all of them to move. So for my transition, I'm going to add a small delay of 0.2 seconds. That means that before the scale and rotation happen in transition, it's going to wait 0.2 seconds. Now if I move my mouse very quickly over all of them, you'll find that they don't move. Pretty cool. Now we've got a couple problems. The way I wrote it, if I mouse over here, you'll notice that the Apple link spins up. Now if I were to look into this, I'll find that it's because I'm saying whenever I hover on the button is my LI. Again, it goes all the way across the document. A lot of development time in the real world is spent figuring out where your code went wrong. Now that I've figured that out, I'm going to grab that hover and put it on the anchor tag where it belongs. Let's refresh and make sure this works. That works fine. And if I roll over the LI, you'll find that nothing happens, just as we would expect. So now I have a fun, albeit slightly gaudy navigation element, where the navigation links spin and grow very large whenever I mouse over. All with CSS3, no JavaScript required. When you're working on this yourself, let your imagination be your guide. You can do all sorts of things. You can change other things aside from just transform, scale, rotation, and translation. You could change the background color. You could change it to a different font. You can do all sorts of things. Some of the properties you could change will be animatable, and some will not be. But go ahead and experiment. Anything you put inside of this a:/hover will animate if indeed the browser can animate it. That's because we said transition all down here.